guys, and welcome back to this new video. So let's start immediately. Alright, let's talk about Salvador Dalì. Specifically here, we're gonna talk about curiosities. Around 17, I would say, curiosities on the life of this artist and wall artist, guys. So let's start immediately. For who among you guys is not very familiar with Salvador Dali's work, I also am not myself extremely familiar, or as familiar as I would love to be. His artwork is just like so freeing and liberating, I would say. But I will let you judge. I am gonna introduce like images of his pieces of artwork in this video, while we talk down not so much about his heart, though that's a huge part of his life, but we talk about curiosities that you might not know. So let's start. Point number one. He was convinced, extremely convinced, that he was the reincarnation of his brother. He had an older brother, 3 years older, who died prematurely. His name was also Salvador, and because Salvador Dalì was Spanish, his name was Salvador, and the two resembled each other so much. So he was extremely convinced that he actually was his own brother, incarnated again in this other life, but there on earth, meaning as his brothers who had come first and who had died. This is something that obsessed Dalì, in a sense that really he had a complicated relationship with this, seeing himself as somebody else, and sometimes also seeing himself from an external point of view, right? So he had a difficult relationship with that idea, though he embraced it completely, in the sense that he made his own. He felt like it was it, and that his brother had come just first, and and he was the same person, just same principle, let's say, same principle that gets manifested, that gets incarnated, but like in two incarnations that are slightly different one from the other. And we also have to say that his parents kind of encouraged all of that by showing Salvador, their first son to Salvador Dalì, their second son, by calling the second son Salvador, by constantly referring to it. Apparently that was something that Dalì had to face pretty early on in his childhood. So childhood that was beautiful, very happy, although the mother died when he was 16, and that was a huge loss, but a huge pain, like it would be normally, I would say, but Salvador Dalì was particularly affected by it, not having his mother. His mother was to him the center of his world, right? And probably that was one of the reasons why he'll pick up like a lady, a woman that was older than him. Some people say like 10 years older, some others will say 20 years older, but we'll get there. Okay, so first of all, reincarnation. Point number two, curiosity number two would be the fact that he went to school, art school. He started actually painting when he was 6, so his career was pretty much designed since he was 6. Of course, here we have to say that he couldn't have known at 6, what he would become, but certainly he had that passion. But he also had an eccentric behavior. Eccentric also was his taste for clothing and behaviors. Reason why he got expelled from art school twice, and he never graduated. He said oftentimes that he felt superior, so he never really graduated there. Curiosity number 3. He adopted the mustache later in life, but he had this mustache that would become like his symbol, and he took it directly from Velázquez. That of Velázquez was way huge than his. But anyway, from a Spanish painter to another Spanish painter. Curiosity number 4. He said, I don't do drugs, I am drugs. And so here we see all the philosophy of this amazing painter, an amazing artist in general, right? Not resorting to drugs themselves, but resorting to his own imagination. I'll get to that in 1 second. Curiosity number 5. He was absolutely phobic of apparently grasshoppers. The reason why these little animals would scare him to death is because apparently when he was a teenager, some kids started to bully him and probably would throw at him grasshoppers, right? So he was absolutely scared of them. Some people, some doctors, I'd say, have suggested that he suffered from Heckbomb syndrome. That is the idea that insects are under one's skin. So, scared of grasshoppers, but also apparently very scared and very frightened by sex. There was at a certain point a rumor saying that Salvador Dalì was gay. He was actually then married and whatnot. That was not the main point. We believe, or people like critics, art critics believe that he was a virgin when he was 25. That is the moment when he met Gala, which we're going to talk about in 1 second again. And he was very frightened. Gala, let's talk about her for a second then. Gala was this woman of Russian origin. Her name was not exactly Gala, but Elena Dmitrievna Giaconova, which I can never remember for the life of me, wife of Paul Eluard, who was also his friend. But the two met in 1929, and since then they hit it off, something sparked, they got married in 1934. Now, to marry her, he actually had to go against his own family. His father certainly was not very, very happy of having a Russian divorcee in the household. So the two married, and he left his paternal house. Now, Dalí wasn't scared of taking positions that were not very much, if you want, liked by people. We are in a period of time very crucial for the history of Europe and then the entire world. And Dalí started painting portraits of Nazi. Many times he portrayed Hitler. Also, never really took a clear-cut position against Hitler himself or against Franco, and for that reason he was severely criticized by his contemporaries. But he was mostly an artist who would spend his life, about 30 years of career, of professional career, and would dedicate those years to what he himself called paranoid critical method, which is what? This is very, very interesting. This is the idea that you live and you let yourself be dominated by the images that would arise in a hypnopompic or hypnagogia, which are actually two different states related to dreaming. So one is when you're about to fall asleep, and the other one is when you go from sleeping to being awake. And this was particularly interesting because his imagination absolutely flourished, and we could see that from colors, from ideas that are absolutely bizarre, like the fact that swans would reflect themselves in a pond and see elephants. By this huge elephants, and he was a little obsessed with certain animals like tigers and elephants. But like I was saying, like elephants that have this huge sticks and they walk on, or they have this thing on their back, which is gonna show here. Anyway, it's all very fascinating, and we can see that also by the representations. We can see that from the colors that were deployed from a lot of different elements. So one of the things that he would do, his kind of technique, was to fall asleep on a chair and then basically have a key, and then when the key would hit the floor, once it's relaxed, there's a moment in which you can regain consciousness, right? You're not just in a state of full drowsiness, right? And that was the moment that he would explore, because it's like you almost wake up, and if you don't wake up fully and get up and do something else, then there you can kind of like elaborate very bizarre images in your mind. And then what he would do, he would transpose those images on canvas and actually make what he did make, so those paintings. But as a man, he was also a little bit of a con artist, right? So there's this side of Salvador Dalì engaged with who later would become the wife, 1934, Gala. And Gala was absolutely dominating his life. Gala would tell him what to do, what time. She would become his publicist, his manager. And Gala would decide how much that piece is worth it. Gala, though, was also a woman that would cheat and would declare very freely her extramarital affairs, right? But the devotion that Dalí had towards her was truly infinite. We could see from the fact that Gala is the center of his artwork. We know that because of friends and family dinners. We know that because at a certain point Gala started suffering from dementia, and then things changed drastically. So he was very concerned, and also a little angry, because she would spend a lot of money on her lovers. And we know that once there was an altercation, there was a physical altercation, and then we know that in that occasion, I know only of that occasion, but with that being said, I do not want to justify any form of violence. We know that Dalí was very angry, and that he broke Gala's ribs, at least two of them, and that was in an apartment that he had bought for her. We were saying that Gala had dementia, and exactly in that occasion she would give him a large dose of Valium with something else, and that would severely damage Dalí's brain, and it would lead him to a condition of deterioration of his own brain. When Gala died, he moved to this house he had bought for her. Her remains were in that house, and he left himself die, basically. We know that he attempted suicide twice. One was by not drinking water, another one was by setting the apartment on fire. None of those two attempts were fortunate enough to succeed, and so they didn't succeed, but we know that he would die later on, shortly thereafter. So we know all of that, and that testifies of the bond, the relationship, and the level of codependence that he had matured and developed towards her. So Gala was his world, more or less like his mother had been his world, until he was 16. But with that being said, we know a couple of things, very interesting things about Salvador Dalì. And I was saying, he is also a bit of a con artist, somebody who would not pay the bill, because he would write the check, and then on the back of the check he would put like a doodle. And so restaurant owners would never cash the check itself, because they knew that by preserving that piece of paper, that check, they would make even more money. We know that when Yoko Ono asked for a strand of his hair, he actually gave her dried grass. He would think of her as a witch and didn't want her to have anything belonging to him. And also, we know that he was an artist because he's a full-blown artist, and his work does not limit to his paintings, but extends to creating campaigns or paintings that would be used for Gap living. We know of his involvement with fashion, specifically with Dior and Elsa Schiaparelli. We know of his involvement with the making of the heart of rubies, and so with a prestigious, very prestigious piece of jewelry. We know that he participated and I think created the logo of Chupa Chups, and that for this reason, exactly for this reason, he was called by his contemporaries Avida dollars, which means like greedy of money. And we also, and finally, know that he created the world's first living hologram. But with that being said, guys, we're done. Those were around 17 curiosity on Salvador Dalì. Please, please, please comment below. Let us know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, join us in this adventure. Also hit the notification bell, comment below, let us know your thoughts. We'll talk very, very soon. Until soon, bye!